It's not a normal world, it's Taskmaster World, and welcome back to Taskmaster World, the podcast. First of all, I would like to say I've got a brand new theme tune that I found online on the interwebs, and I asked him if I could use it. He's called Steve, Schuster. There we go. I did have his social media names, but I lost that. But thank you for letting me use his theme tune for the sake of for my guests' knowledge. It's a pop synth edition of the Taskmaster theme tune using synthesizers. There we go. And for context for viewers, because I like to mention this now because people have been commented that. Let me move my finger for anyone watching this. That image of Mike Wozniak is definitely saying it's not a normal world, it's Taskmaster world, because it's a quote he said on Series 11, Episode 8. But I digress. We're back with the interviews. Now, this guest, this time, comes from the UK. Normally, my guests come from abroad, like New Zealand, and I can't say much else, but if we think joking apart, Australia. One guest is best known for the Taskmaster's People's Podcast and for writing a collection of children's shows we'll find out about. It's the one and only Jack Bernhardt.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Welcome. Now we'll start at the very beginning because Julie Andrews once said it's a very good place to start.
Very good.
I always agree with her. Not when she's Mary Poppins though. But how did you get into writing?
How did I get into writing? That's a very good question. I mean, I did a lot at school with some friends of mine, and then we ended up just sort of writing for the sake of it and doing like sketches on I was going to say sketches online. It wasn't really sketches online because when I was doing it, it was 2006, so there wasn't that much online to be had. But we did sketches between each other, and then off the back of that, there was a competition saying, "Do you want to send these? Do you think you could write for the BBC?" So we ended up sending the sketches to the BBC, and we got to the final of it as a group. And then off the back of that, it was just from there. I was like, "Okay, I'll do this, do this a bit more." And then so it's quite a lot of radio work really to start with. And then off the back of that, did some stuff for the news quiz, the Now Show. Yeah, and then it's just been carrying on after that point. It's just that every step has been like the next step to my career is, I described it as basically like doing lots of things mediocrely for a while until someone lets you do the next thing. So it's basically where I am, I'd say, with that.
Yeah, and you were saying there that you worked on radio. So has working on radio helped you master the art of the podcast?
Oh, well, so I wasn't on the radio that much because we did like one sketch show with friends, and then that went on the radio. But then after that point, I was sort of writing for people on the radio. So I've been to a lot of radio recordings. So I suppose I know a little bit of. I know what a microphone is. I'm currently talking into a microphone, and I'm doing a great job. I used to be really like I not against podcasting, but just very afraid of talking into the microphone and sort of talking and stuff. I just became so blasé very quickly. Like the idea that people could just look into my bedroom and I would just sort of be like, wearing clothes, but I'd be like, oh yeah, hello, hi, it's me again. And also like working with, because I work with Lou on the Taskmaster, Lou Sanders on the Taskmaster People's podcast. Listen to it, and she's brilliant and bonkers, and like she'll come up with anything. So I feel like that's definitely been an experience where like I now will just talk because Lou's very good at just talking and very good at just saying anything and sort of throwing curveballs at you.
You mentioned the podcast, so we'll talk a bit more about that in a second, but I recommend you listen to it on Spotify, not Apple Podcasts, because I am dead against Apple Podcasts because it messes things up. It's not the greatest platform.
That's it. Okay.
It downloads them when I don't want it to download things.
Yeah. Can I just say a thing against Spotify, even though I am a Spotify subscriber and I should like it. I've downloaded several things on my phone, and then I go to a place with no internet, and I'm like, oh, I can listen to that thing I've downloaded. You can't. Spotify doesn't let you do that. I hate it, but also I'm enthralled to it. So who cares? But yeah.
And now, one of the things that on a community level you're most well known for, on a community level, not a business, level, is for Taskmaster facts and all the deep diving into the world of Taskmaster.
Yes.
Now, how did you get into Taskmaster? From the get go, where was your first introduction into this world of idiots doing things you wouldn't expect them to be doing?
I would say so. I'm relatively late in terms of where I come in Taskmaster. I think I'd seen adverts for it obviously the whole time until because it starts 2015. I'd seen adverts going up to like 2017. And I was like, this looks like fun, because it looks like things on adverts on Dave and stuff. So this looks okay. Quite enjoy this. It was series 9 was the first one where I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch this. I'll really get into this. And that was sort of like that was December. Well, that must have been October, November, December 2019. And I remember thinking, this is great. I can't wait for the next series. I ended up just watching the whole thing over and over again, like a lot of people, really, over and over again, and really getting into it and really sort of like analyzing it. And I was like, I'm going to work out my favorite bits from Taskmaster and just write about them. And so I ended up doing like a poll on like my Twitter feed, being like, "What are your favorite bits from Taskmaster?" People voted on it, and sort of I came up with a list of 124 moments that I just then typed out and being like, sort of going like, "It's a rundown. It's we're going to enjoy this," and that was just sort of for my own enjoyment more than anything, because I wanted to write something that was just because Taskmaster is such a pure love and a pure joy. I think a lot of people get a love out of just. People really enjoyed reading it, which is great, but also like I just really enjoyed writing about it because there's nothing. It's just pure silliness. It's just wonderful. And then off the back of that, I ended up doing a similar article for the Guardian, and then and this just shows how great the people at Taskmaster are. They saw the article in the Guardian, which I've done articles like about TV shows before, and I'll set and usually, and they're always very nice, because like if I'm talking about a TV show, it's because I become obsessed with it and I really want to. I really like. I did a thing where I watched all of Bones in a week. Actually, Tom, physically impossible. But still, it was basically during the point of that was peak lockdown madness. But like it was something where I was like, I'm going to write about this. No one from Bones ever contacted me. That's absolutely fine, because why would they? But Taskmaster, like literally within a week, I got like an email from my agent being like, "Hello, they would like you to do an interview with Alex, and they want you to do like to just be involved in the show." And I think that just shows like not in the show, but in getting access to the show and the rest of it. And that just shows like what they're a very reactive in a good way, and they really engage with their fans and really engage with people. And then off the back of that, I then, after doing an interview with Alex, I then went on Ed's podcast, because I know Ed from comedy things in general, and we were just chatting, and he was talking about how I was a Taskmaster expert. And as he said, "You're a Taskmaster expert," I was like, "I'm not a Taskmaster expert at all. I've done my favorite bits, but I can't tell you stats." So I ended up then doing a spreadsheet, and then that spreadsheet just grew and grew and grew. And the next time I was on Ed's podcast, he was like, "You're the expert," and I was like, "Yeah, I am," because I've wasted a lot of time now doing stuff on this.
Yes, it's really interesting that because when I get obsessed with things, if you're watching the YouTube videos, you could probably tell where I'm alluding to. I never normally know the origins of said obsession, but with Taskmaster, I do know the origin. Funnily enough, it's my brother, because my brother's like older than me, not that older. I don't know how many years older, but he's older.
Sure.
Yeah, and he was watching it, so I walked in on him watch it, and I sat around and then watched it, and then demanded I watch it, and then he stopped watching it, and now I'm into it, and then because I was new people that watched it around the time Ian Sterling was on it.
Yes, so that must be 2019 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was around that time that I know people. When I started watching it, I think it's after Joe Lyson's series had been on. That's when I started watching it.
Oh wow, okay.
So I went into high school in 2015, so I was around for the madness.
You were there, so you were straight in. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I do think it is one of those things where I like a lot of panel show things where you just sort of have it on in the background and you're like, oh yeah, this is okay. I do think there are, with Taskmaster, it definitely feels like a thing where you watch a tiny bit and you're like, I am now obsessed with this show. I now must see everything.
Well, I mean, I'm very much obsessed. This is why this YouTube channel ended up turning out to be what it is. And
Of course.
yeah. And Alex knows about it. I've interviewed Alex, and he does the outro at the end. He tells everyone to subscribe. But how did you end up getting involved with the Taskmaster People's podcast? Because that's an interesting concept.
It is, and that was really interesting actually because like after doing Ed's podcast, I did Ed's podcast maybe 3 or 4 times, and I think Ed's like Ed and the producers on the podcast, Daisy and James, they're all really wonderful, and they were very much like, we'd like to do that because they're so aware of the amazing fandom of Taskmaster, and like I think everyone who's done Taskmaster, and I'm not a part of Taskmaster really, I'm just a really big fan, but like I'm slowly, sort of like in a weird like mid place between the two. But everyone who's done Taskmaster has always said like how brilliant the fans are, and the fans really are a thing that really makes the show because people are so passionate about it, and all the Easter eggs that go in there for the fans, and like everyone seems so like everyone is so enthusiastic and lovely and supportive of everyone who starts doing the show. And I think that was sort of the aim really, was to do something that I think showed the show's appreciation for the fans. And like I think there was a sort of talk of whether I could come in to be like the not the biggest fan. I think we've proved that through several episodes of the show where that we do quizzes and I get absolutely annihilated by proper fans. They know exactly what they're talking about. But like I think it was good to sort of, because like having a sort of like, I've gone deep into the stats and I've gone deep into the like the ideas behind it and trying to sort of find all the little Easter eggs, even though as people will often find things that I never see. But I think that really was the aim of, and continues to be the aim of the People's Podcast, is sort of something that is a celebration of the show from the fans' perspective. And really, it was it was like, who can we pair me with, or it was not pair me with. They got Lou already booked up, and they were sort of like, we want. I think originally it was like I would come in and do stats every so often, and then it was basically we got on really well, Lou and I, and just sort of were able to chat really nicely, and then it just became it's just really fun at this point, and it's just I just really enjoy doing it, and I think it's been really nice, and I think it's just it's so nice to talk to people about and to make connections with people about Taskmaster, and make connections with people like yourself, and to sort of really that it's something that brings people together in a really lovely way.
And it's really, the podcast itself is really interesting because it like the official Taskmaster podcast and the People's Podcast, one of those like podcasts that really make me laugh, because I've been doing this not that long, the Taskmaster World podcast itself.
Yeah.
And I find it hilarious how I've somehow managed to interview certain people ahead of the official lot.
Yes.
So I find it hilarious how I've got in there in advance.
I think looking at your list, I was like, yeah, you got Ursula Carlson before us. You got David Koresh. We've never had David Koresh. Like lots of people were like, oh man, there's some great people here.
Yeah, and then it gets me annoyed when I'm not available to an interview with someone, then find out one of the official podcasts a week later.
They do. That's what they do, though. We've had that a lot with Ed, though, where we'll be really excited about someone, and then they'll be like, well, Ed's got to go first. And you're like, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I suppose that's fair enough. Ed's podcast, yeah.
And moving away from Taskmaster for a small bit, to work on your interesting career.
Uh-huh.
When I say interest, I really do mean interest. What was it like getting the opportunity to write for the new wave of Horrible Histories?
I mean, it's sort of bonkers in a way, that in the sense that I love I love Horrible Histories. I love the books. I'm like, growing up with the books, like they were my obsession. Like I have I've them all like somewhere in my house, and a lot of them have been sort of destroyed from overreading over and over again. And watching the show, I was like, these guys are amazing, and obviously they've gone on to do fantastic things with Ghosts. And so, like that was definitely the job where, I've done lots of things that I've really enjoyed and really liked, and in terms of writing, but Horrible Histories, I was like, this is it. This is definitely what I want to do. And it's really, I mean, the process that for the writing is so interesting, and so it's unlike any show I've ever done before, because you come in, you sit down in this like a room full of half with comedians, half with historians, and they basically give you an information pack and say, we're going to go through this whole pack today, and afterwards you're going to get to make jokes about it. So it's sort of like it's like being given the best history lesson ever, because it's just ridiculously detailed, and like you can ask questions like, wait, when is this in relation to, like, how does this, like, you can be asking like pointlessly over the top specific niche questions, and the historians that are there are super intelligent. They know exactly what they're talking about, so they're like, oh yeah, that refers to this period, and obviously, and like, so for the history nerd in me, I was like, this is fantastic, I love this to pieces. And then afterwards you're like, now go away and write jokes. Like, yeah, this is perfect. This is what I want my life to be like forever. And it's still very surreal, like watching, with a lot of things, I'm like, it's very surreal watching the things that you write getting played out. And I think with Horrible Histories especially, it's very like, it's still, I can't quite believe it. It almost feels like someone else has done it, and I'm just sort of like, I'm getting to be them for a bit. But like, I think, yeah, it's a great experience, and like, and being able to write like just for the show in general. I got to go to the show actually a couple of months ago now, actually nearly a year ago, where I got to go to be on the set and actually got to be an extra in. So I might be turning up in a scene in a later episode of Horrible Histories, maybe. I say maybe because I'm pretty sure the director went like, yeah, that was good, and then like I saw him whisper to someone. I was like, oh, I don't know if I was getting in.
Yeah, well, Horrible Histories is one of those things. Like I'm not gonna say the original cast, because what's really interesting about Horrible Histories is, since I'm not gonna say a dawn time, but when the books were a thing, I don't know what year it all happened, but they've created audio books.
Yes.
Where Terry Deary and I think it's Nick Brown, but I'm not sure. They did. They were incredible. I've heard them millions of times. But the audio books, and they were quote unquote the original cast.
Yes.
And so Horrible Histories having this new cast, and then all the ones like, oh, the original cast is better. It's not. It's not that. It's like the cast is ever evolving throughout the history of the show, because they did the animated version, the audio books, and they've done many things. So it's like, it's it's like Doctor Who. It
is like Doctor Who.
Selection of casts.
And also, like, you're absolutely right, because I had, when I found out there was going to be a Horrible History show, that the first one, you're right, was the animated show. I watched that and I loved it. And then when the new one came out, I was like, we've done this, haven't we? And so didn't watch it for a few years. And then afterwards I watched it, I was like, oh, this is actually really good. And then was like, I really want to write for it. But like, yeah, I think it's not, especially with something like history, which is, constantly evolving and constantly changing. And also what's so interesting is that, like, it's not just that, like, the show is, the history will carry on forever, as it were. That's what a sentence. History will carry on forever, Tom.
It will.
It will. But we can't just freeze it. But you watch some old Horrible Histories from like 2006 or so, whenever it sort of first started, and it's like still amazing, but it is very different to what the show is doing now. Like, it's very, like, the show now is quite like themed, and I think actually quite political in a lot of ways that maybe the old stuff wasn't. It's quite interesting. Yeah.
And I've seen when it first came back, when they said it's coming back, well, they didn't do that, but when they said it's, I did watch it because it was morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
So I think out of any program, it had the best ending ever. But the new lot, when Series 6 came out and over,
Yeah.
I was a little bit upset that they didn't keep on Rowan Atkinson for anymore.
Yeah.
But it was really good with Rowan Atkinson as Henry VIII.
I think you can only, I think a lot of these things you have to sort of be like, okay, we'll get him in for one, and then because there was someone else they had in, I've now forgotten. Just lots of good people from like big names they get in and are able to sort of get in for like 1 or 2 episodes, and then you have to be like, you know what, you did it for 1 or 2 episodes, and we appreciate that, but now it's the next lot as well. Well, Ben Miller, that was it, when Ben Miller was doing it, which is great, and I love Ben Miller, and I think you did such a good job, but you can't have Ben Miller every week. Ben Miller's a special treat.
He is. And one of the programs you did work on that I don't know many people that know of it, because it's one of those programs that if you know about it, you'll never forget it. But it's DNN. You worked on the second.
Yes.
I kind of say it's one of the greatest programs ever. Because I was at Media City not that long ago. I was saying to my mother, who was with me at the time, I was detailing explaining a scene from DNN that was filmed in the centre of where the massive screen is, and I was explaining what was going on, because it was the greatest program that had ever happened.
Oh no,
working on it.
It was super fun. So actually, what's interesting about DNN from my, because obviously it was all filmed up in Manchester and I was down in London, and it was the first job I had outside of radio. So it was my first TV job, effectively. And I mean, getting to do anything where you get to write for Will Andrews is incredible. Like, Will Andrews is amazing, and obviously, and Gemma Arrowsmith, who's a friend of mine actually as well, so good as the in that as well, and like and of course Taskmaster royalty in there as well. Moana Rizwan turning up. Like, it was a super fun show, because I remember when we first. So I think I did some on series 1. I did a lot more, and I did a bit more in series 2. But like, it was definitely the kind of thing where, and a lot of kids shows say they do this and then they actually don't. But that they were very much like, go big silly jokes, and like, do the news parodies, do the things that you want to do in like the day to day. Effectively, I think a lot of what they wanted was that kind of day to day vibe. And obviously, it's not the day to day, because the day to day is genius and what. And that, like, and there are stuff that you obviously can't do for kids, but like, I think everyone was trying. I think everyone who wrote on that show was like, we're going to make the day to day. It's going to be great. And I think that sort of shows a lot of the way, because getting to do the jokes for Will Andrews, and like stupid slapstick and stupid fun around that.
We need it on DVD.
It should exist on DVD, actually, because I remember watching it when it came out, and I was really happy with all of it. I used to write my one that I used to do quite a lot was Fill Time. Fill Time was my like go-to person to write jokes for. I think I didn't come up with the name, I don't think, but I remember like just a lot of really stupid jokes about just finding stupid reasons that Phil wouldn't cover a story. Yeah. Oh God, I loved it. It was so much fun.
I mean, the greatest bit ever is, it really annoys me, his name, but it's the bloke that always did the sports, and he would cut back to himself. It was the roving reporter.
Oh yes. Oh God. I know the bit. I've completely. Yeah, I know who you mean, but yes.
The whole tennis one. Oh, it's just like, it's brilliant.
It should be somewhere on. Yeah, I think it might be on iPlayer. It turns up on iPlayer sometimes. I get residuals like once every three years. They'll be like, we showed DNN again. I'm like, great, cool.
Well, I know for a fact that if you're at a university or a college that has a box of broadcasts, Bob, it's on there. It's on there.
Okay. Good tip for your university listeners out there.
So if you have a library card, you get Bob, and you can watch Junior Eurovision 2019 with Welsh commentary. You can watch TMI Friday with Sam and Mark.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
I've named one more obscure program. You can watch 2014's Eurovision.
This seems like quite an eclectic version of Eurovisions you got here.
Yeah. And I think, and I'm not confirmed this, I think you can watch Eurovision Dance.
Oh. Yeah. I didn't know Eurovision Dance was a thing.
Well, there's even more Eurovisions. But another program you've worked on that I don't know what year. I don't know whether or not I should have been watching it, because how Siri sees a certain age range.
Yeah.
But I don't know if if I was too old for it, but I'm one of those people that keep an eye on children's TV. You worked on something that not many people talk about. The spin-off wasn't that great on BBC Three, but the original was better. What was it like working on Class Dismissed?
Oh, Class Dismissed. That was so similar to DNN, actually. After working on DNN, I got to work on Class Dismissed, and that was a lot of fun as well. I mean, it's quite a lot of it was quite a lot of like coming up with ridiculous teachers and just remembering teachers from school and like the ones that you sort of thought were the weirdest people in the world and just trying to write around that. I think there was quite the English teacher who's trying to be super cool. I think this is right. That was very much inspired by me. I had an old English teacher who went on. I think he went on to write for the lads magazine Nuts, and if you imagine that teacher, if you imagine a teacher who writes for Nuts, that's him. You've got him in one. I mean, I think there's quite a lot of things that were very like the school is obviously a bonkers place, and I think it's a really interesting place for people to like grow and learn, and also like it's a place that sort of inspires, like it's it's who you become, I guess. It's like a sort of a growing up aspect to it all. But like I think it's that a lot of people writing on Class Dismissed could really mine quite a lot from their school life. I this didn't make the show, and I don't think I actually ever pitched it. But there's once, and I think I've told this on the Taskmaster Pupils podcast, but it stuck with me. It was a teacher who got so angry that he was furious. He was like screaming at the class. He got so angry that the wall shook, and the clock behind him fell off the wall and hit him on the head. And everyone was just like, "What?" And he was like, "Ah, my head!" Amazing. Yeah. Just like, but also like just a great way of completely undermining like kids. Not kids. Undermining like a rant that you have at that point. It's just school's weird. School's weird and brilliant, and I think that was what was great about Class Dismissed, was getting to write those things in.
But I don't think any normal school has a cookery teacher that looks like Mary Berry, and every time she leans over or does anything, she farts.
Yes, no, I do remember that. I also remember thinking that I didn't quite understand how we had come up, how that situation had happened, if that makes sense. Where I was like, how did we get from Mary Berry to farting? I don't get it. I don't understand. But it works. It works, and it's great.
It worked, but the spin-off didn't.
I didn't watch the spin-off, sadly. Maybe that's why it didn't work.
There's only one episode on BBC Three. It was about the original kids from the first couple of series, and they went to college. They're at college.
Oh, interesting.
It's supposed to be like a successful spin-off. It failed after one episode.
It's a shame.
Now, with your talent, skill, and charm,
okay,
what advice would you give to the term used loosely, but up and coming writers of the medium of comedy or just writing in general?
That's a good question, and I think it's really difficult, especially right now, because it's a very fractured industry. Like it's very hard to sort of it's very hard. I think it used to be that you kind of like find your lane and then you stuck with that and then you could kind of keep going forever. I think that are a lot of writers who I know, like, and myself included, you jump from job to job, or you jump from like persona to persona like quite quickly. So I think my biggest advice would just be staying open to everything, and also not to be like there's a big thing in, I think I felt it, of like saying, or being able to say like, oh, I've made it as a writer, or I've made it as a as a comedian or something. Like it's only very recently that I've stopped doing other jobs. Like while I was writing for Class Dismissed, DNN, Horrible Histories, even, like I was doing other jobs, like other non-creative jobs. Not as much, but like I was still, to fill in the gaps in work, because that's what happens, really. So I think this is quite a downbeat answer possibly, but I would say like a big thing would be not to put pressure on yourself to say like, oh, I've made it, or I haven't made it, or like, oh God, like, such and such person was the age I am now when I haven't made it because they've made it, because you can't compare yourself in the way that, like, everyone has different ways of getting about it. You just have to keep doing what you love and keep yourself open to as many opportunities as possible, I would say, because it's going to be very unlikely that you will have that hit series that will mean that you're on Easy Street for the rest of your life. You do have to keep on like building things, and to also to enjoy that. Like it's completely like the two biggest weirdest jobs that I've had, I would say, have come from me doing dumb tweets, and like I couldn't possibly predict how that would go, and you just have to sort of like. I got a job writing in The Guardian because I did a series of dumb tweets, and I got a job writing like working on the Taskmaster podcast, which I've enjoyed more than anything, like from doing an article that was considered at the time a massive waste of time for everyone involved. So like I think you just have to, a lot of it has to be just what you love doing, really. Yeah, I'd say that.
And before we get on to the main the episode we're talking about,
Yeah.
when you're writing, are you one of those that get a pen? I don't have any pen and paper, or are you one of those ones that use specific softwares to type out your writing script wise?
Oh no, so I'm really bad with pen and paper. Like for some reason I just can't. I have about like 5 notebooks, and I would say no, I have more than 5 notebooks. I have like 20 notebooks, and I would say the first 3 pages, every single one of them has stuff in it, and then I completely forget the notebook exists, and I then look at them 5 years later. I'm like, oh, that was an idea. Oh well. Like really, for me, it's the drafts, it's the emails drafts on my phone.
Yeah.
Is where I'll put down like ideas, or annoying stats that I found about Taskmaster. And then, which is really annoying if I'm trying to find an important email. I'm like, oh, Bridget Christie is the most inconsistent Taskmaster contestant. Great. Like she is very much a character. I would say I don't have a specific software, but Google Drive and Google Docs has about like every so often I'll look at my like the things I've forgotten about in my Google Docs, and it's like just a mountain of just nonsense where I'm like, oh, that could be an idea. That's a film. That's a thing. Yeah, that's a so I'd say that really, but I'm not a pen and paper. Are you a pen and paper person?
No.
Well, I should have known from how long it took you to find a pen, really.
My writing, when I look at my writing, it starts there and then ends there.
Okay. Okay. So you need the ruler. You need the ruler. I can understand that. That's good.
That's why I type everything. I used to use Apple Notes, and then it failed on me and got rid of everything I've ever written. So I moved it, and it's a whole.
That's painful. I know people who have gone on Apple Notes, and they really they don't bug me. They're fine. But it's more that they'll be like, I'll send you my Apple Notes, and then you send them, and they're in a possible format. And so I spend about half a day trying to get them into the correct format, and then getting really angry. And I read the notes, and I'm like, that wasn't very good. And I'm like, why? It seemed fine. And I was like, okay, well, yes, it's just because the format took ages for me to work out. God.
Yeah. Well, that's why I've found the correct script format that works with Google Docs. So I can now write my scripts on Google Docs.
Oh, is that a very, very nerdy question? Is that Celtex?
Well, I used to use Celtex.
Yeah.
You're only allowed 3 free projects at a time. And then I used another one, but then it stopped working on me. But I Googled script template for Google Docs, and it gave me one, and now I've got.
That's good. I bit the bullet, and well, it's because I had a job finally where I was like, okay, I actually have to get Final Draft. So I now do have Final Draft, but I'm aware that is, you don't, if you're an aspiring writer out there, you do not have to get Final Draft until you feel comfortable. I know a professional writer who has done amazing, wonderful stuff, and she still doesn't have Final Draft, and I actually respect her quite a lot for not having it.
Well, when I do sitcoms and whatnot.
Oh, brilliant.
YouTube, but I used to do an improvised because it was a lot quicker. It was a lot easier. But I can never recreate the same voice and the characters until one fateful day I learned how to do that. And I have been writing scripts left, right, and centre, and I'm writing
Fantastic.
other a couple of things. And I used to use Celtex and then it wasn't working, but I've
Yeah.
learned like, ways of doing it where I don't have to fork out nearly 100 quid for final.
I know, and I'm not, I currently have to, and I'm fine with that, I guess. But yes, I don't. I used to use Trelby. Did you use Trelby?
Oh no, I've not heard of that one.
Trelby was good. Trelby was good, but if you had to send off your draft to someone else, they would get very annoyed at you. But Trelby, look, I sent off a film script using Trelby to producers, and then they were like, "This is good. Can you change this, this, and this?" And I didn't have Trelby anymore, so it was a nightmare. I was like, "Oh God, what have I done?" This is it's very niche and weird. Yes, good.
Well, as of recently, I mean, I'm gonna say like the other day, they announced the second series of I'm gonna call it Taskmaster Quebec, but it is called something else, but I just don't know how to pronounce it.
Le maître de jeu.
Yeah, well, yeah, that sounds great.
Merci bien.
Well, we're gonna go back in time and talk about Taskmaster Quebec Series 1, Episode 1. And so we start at the beginning. Now, disclaimer is that we're gonna attempt to pronounce the name of the contestants, but if we can't get them correct, I do apologize.
Yeah, Will. Yeah, I apologize already for my butchered pronunciation.
Yeah.
Excited for it.
So we start with the prize task, which is the most impressive item,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think it's the one that most versions use.
It's a good start. I mean, it's a big thing to start the show, and it is really interesting to watch because I've watched a few now for Taskmaster People's Podcast where you watch it from different countries. Like it must be really difficult to be like, okay, we're doing the show, and I think it's a good prize task to have. At least from the kickoff, it felt like everyone found their role quite quickly, which was quite nice.
And when you interview these guests from international versions,
Mhm.
get the luxury of Amazon sending you the stuff instead of after research on YouTube.
I do have the luxury of Amazon sending me your stuff, but that's I mean, yes, I have to confess, which is nice, really, but yeah.
Because Taskmaster Supermax Plus in the UK doesn't have any international versions. But all the international versions are on the service for everyone else.
I think having had a few, because I share this thing where I'm like, look, if Taskmaster Supermax had all of the Australian, New Zealand, then I would be fully on it. But I need to wait until those are there, and then I can do it. But yeah, it's quite that in that sense it's good because I just talked to producer Ben, lovely producer Ben, and he hooks me up with I've got we had the creation version. God, we've got loads. We've got New Zealand, Australia, yeah.
And the potential Italy version that Alex had mentioned on one podcast.
Interesting. Okay.
He mentioned it on a board game podcast. This is a game, and they were asking him creating games. He mentioned it very briefly, and then just never mentioned it again.
I'm sure these things, because some I think a few have they've tried them and they've I don't know if they've then gone to series or not, but like it's incredible how many there are currently, and with good reason because it's obviously great. But like, it's just I thought with this one, with like the prize task especially, like I think it was often with these things, like I say, it feels like everyone's a little bit on edge and they're like, oh God, what am I doing? It felt like all 5 of these people, like all 7 people who were on stage, Antoine, the Taskmaster, the 5 contestants, everyone felt very much like, we know what we're doing here, don't worry, this is going to be great, which is such a weight off my mind watching these things.
And the German version, in one that comes to mind, that only went to pilot and it went to go and watch it, had no what was going on because he couldn't understand German.
Oh no.
And met the cast afterwards. He did that as well for Belgium. He went to meet the cast, but he still had no clue what was going on.
That's amazing.
There's a photo of him stood with the cast, and you can see the terror on his face, so having no clue what to say.
Like, was it good? Did you like it? I don't know. I have no idea. Oh, bless Alex. I mean, Alex, he is like such a lovely guy as well, but like in terms of just giving his time up for people, Like it's just remarkable. He's a remarkably giving. He's a very generous person in that sense, and I think that also having. Have you been to a recording of the show?
No, because I'm
Oh,
north of England, so I don't have the luxury of heading.
oh, if you talk to, I mean, we could talk afterwards, legitimately, and talk to someone at Avalon. If you ever found yourself in London or in the southeast at any point, and it happened to be when the show was on, I'm sure you'd be able to get like to a recording, just because like that's one of those things where like you can just tell everyone's really happy being like to work on the show and really like excited to be there because a lot of TV shows are very stressful and obviously they're very like you know, there's only a certain amount of time that you've got to do these things, whereas Taskmaster, everyone who I've spoke to on it are like, this is just so much fun constantly.
Yeah. Before we get on to the first person, I'd like to say I have heard rumours once that Ollie from Norway was in the audience watching one of the recordings, sat behind one of the fans that put it online, and they were in behind Ollie.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's very nice.
So Christina, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I think it's more Morency for anyone that wants to try and pronounce that.
Well, super. Yeah.
She brought in some jewellery that she stole.
I feel like Christine might have misunderstood the task a little bit. Because also I feel like that's going to be a very good task in the future, surely.
Well, she could get arrested by the police.
Yeah, I don't know what the statute of limitations is with stolen jewelry that looks very cheap. I don't know what the statute of limitations are. Because the thing is that it's impressive. Well, it's jewelry, but it's quite, you know, it doesn't look great. But like there must be a task coming up that is like coolest thing or like most thing that must be coming up. The fact that she's used this on that makes me worried that she hasn't understood, or this is the other option. She has all of her tasks, all of her prize tasks are going to be stolen jewelry.
Or it could be like stolen toilet paper.
Yeah, she's all about the stealing. That's great.
Stolen pick a mix that she stole off Richard Herring.
Yeah.
She stole Greg Davis.
Yeah, she stole his trousers. She's very good at stealing.
She stole Rod Gilbert. And then Eve, if I pronounce that correctly, because it's got the little.
I think it is Eve. I think they were saying Eve. So, but yeah, Eve goes. Yeah.
She brought me NHL hockey player Alexander Rookie trading card. Now I don't know what NHL is. If you know.
I think it's the National Hockey League. I'm going to go with in America. I mean, I think this might be one of those. This might be one of those. My brain's gone. Sorry. This might be one of those Canadian things that is very impressive for Canadians, but not very impressive for everyone else. Which sounds mean, but like it was watching it, you were like, yeah, that's okay, I suppose. It's a bit like whenever I mean, I love football. I think football's great, but whenever people bring in football things and you just see Greg's face like glazing over, you are like, I suppose read the room, like, but that's just literally read. Only I have that reaction, so maybe that's on me.
Yeah, and then Matt, I'm gonna say Mateus.
Mateus or Mathieu?
Well, it's spelled Mathieu.
Yeah, I think Mathieu.
Yeah. You've got a better French accent.
Oh, I can jump in and say Mathieu whenever you want me to. Just pretend you're sneezing, you'll be fine. Mathieu.
It does sound like a sneeze. He brought in an autograph of comedian Dominique Seeland.
I thought this was really cute, actually. And I think it's not impressive. Well, it is impressive if you're of a niche, if you're a fan of niche Canadian comedians, which I guess if you're watching Taskmaster Quebec, good chance you are. But like, I suppose it isn't impressive, but there is something very sweet about the idea that this comedian has he said he had it. I don't know if this is true, but he had it behind a frame, like, and that he'd kept it up and that he was bringing in. But I thought that was very cute.
And he might be a future contestant in future series.
Exactly. That I think that was what was very sweet about this idea that like that he because when we talked to Tom Cashman, who did who's the assistant on Taskmaster Australia, well, he was saying that when he met Tom Gleeson for the first time, he met him like at a comedy club, and Tom Gleeson gave him like lots of advice and stuff, and it was such an important moment in his life. And then later on, he was like, "Hey, Tom Gleeson, remember me?" And Tom was like, "I don't know who you are." not in like a mean way, but in like a obviously that moment that was a pivotal moment in your life when you got to meet Tom Gleeson, he inspired you to be a comedian, was very important for you, but for Tom Gleeson didn't really matter. There's something very sweet about this idea that a comedian like signed an autograph for this kid at the time, and that kid has consequently gone on to become a big enough comedian that they're on Taskmaster Quebec. I thought that was very sweet, but not impressive.
Well, the fun fact for you: the director for Series 3 and I think Series 2 of Taskmaster New Zealand also directed Series 2, and I think must be Series 1 of Taskmaster Australia.
I did know that because we've had him on the show as well. He's great. He's very funny.
He is very good, and it was comical because he was the first Tom I had ever interviewed. Then we had Joe, and I'm gonna say Cormer, but it might be Cormier.
Who can say?
Well, he can. He brought in what I like to call. I'm gonna call it an inappropriate item.
I think it was an inappropriate item. I think you're not getting that past Taskmaster bleeped, I'll say.
Well, with the only country that has bleeped version of.
I can believe that. I think that the UK is that requires a level of dedication to make bleeped work that you couldn't necessarily make the other ones work in. So I think that's fair. I thought this was filthy and not at all deserving of 5 points. And also, like, no one thematically seemed to nail this one, I'm gonna say. And it was weird because I was watching him. I don't know if this is true of you, Tom. Did Joe really reminded me of Mike Wozniak's evil brother, like evil twin brother.
Yeah,
like
it's the Tash,
it's the Tash, but also that he sort of would, instead of like saying like whimsical sweet things like "God, do the task," he would say like "everybody wins" and "here's a dirty rag," and it was like, is this a weird character that Mike Wozniak's doing?
Oh, you never see him in the same room.
Exactly. Maybe Mike's got a great French accent.
Well, he could be the Taskmaster Junior assistant.
I would think there would be problems with that if he's bringing in this level of prize task. Tut.
Yeah. And then we had Medhi. I mean,
Medhi.
She brought in a painting of herself, narcissist.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a classic move, really, isn't it, to bring in a painting of yourself? I think doing it for episode 1 is always a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
Frankie Boyle did it this series on UK, and I was like, oh, I don't know. Episode one, you got to be careful.
I don't want to upset Frankie. He's one of those. I don't want to upset him.
Yeah, you should. I'm not afraid of upsetting him. Because I'm not a coward. No, no, I am obviously afraid. We're all afraid of upsetting him. But I think also, not very much chance he's going to do the People's Podcast, so that's all right. But that he, like, I think it's interesting with people doing the impressive things. I think that probably was the most impressive item, I would say, even though it was narcissistic. I don't know. It was the most impressive, certainly.
It's better than an autograph. It's better than an inappropriate item. It's better than card. It's definitely better than stolen jewelry. So I do think it is.
But I think it only got 1 point, didn't it?
Yeah, they didn't do that great. Now we move on to the first proper task. This, I'll give an interest. This task did not work horrendously on Taskmaster Spain. Didn't work in Taskmaster America, but did work here for some bizarre reason. It worked here. Painting a horse whilst riding a horse.
I think this is a really interesting thing because this is the second ever task to be on the UK one, isn't it? I think, yeah. And I'm going to say something controversial. I think this is a task that sounds like a great Taskmaster task when you say it out loud, like to say this is what the show is. I don't think the UK one was that good, but possibly because it came immediately after the watermelon one, and also because Roisin Conaty didn't go on the horse. And also because they showed the pictures before they showed the people riding on the horse. That has always been my bugbear with that task. I've always been like, you're doing it because I think everyone knows how to do a taskmaster. You gotta show them trying to ride the horse and then say, look, and this is how they did. That is, yeah. And I think it was interesting because I've never really enjoyed that, or not never really, but I've always been like, yeah, it's an okay task in the UK version. Here, I thought it was really good.
Well, they should have saved it for Mike Wozniak.
Yeah, they should have said, well, they did. They got him the Quebec version. But I think that was the thing that was missing from the UK version, was that this one had the great joke of everyone else going, oh God, I hate this. This is terrible, swearing and going all over the shop. Cut to Joe, Mike Wozniak, like just looking the calmest that anyone's looked, just beautiful drawing. And then the reveal that his painting was terrible.
Well, if I ever get to interview Mike Wozniak, I am going to tell him he's got an evil twin brother in Quebec.
I think he does. I think he'd be curious to know.
We need to admit that's some sort of a joke. That needs to just be out. Everyone needs to know that.
They should know.
It's hilarious. So Christine, she was frustrated with the horse, and as a result, painted stormy clouds.
I gotta tell you, I really like Christine. I think I wasn't a huge fan of her prize task, but in this episode, I think Christine, if I was sort of like watching someone to be like, that's going to be the person I'm always curious to see how they do something, Christine was definitely that person, because she's very funny, and like almost immediately on this, you could see she was not having a great time, but really it was just so entertaining to watch. And I think, yeah, like the anger that she showed toward the horse was beautiful, truly beautiful.
Well, I think she should appear on Taskmasters of People's podcast.
Why not?
And so Eve, she was terrified of going on the horse in the first place, but she seemed to not enjoy the task.
Yeah, it was weird, this one, because I was really expecting Eve's to be terrible. And she didn't look like she was. I mean, I think they've said this before on Ed's podcast, that the camera angle whenever they're wearing the hats.
Yeah.
That camera angle is so funny. It doesn't matter what anyone is doing. That camera angle is so funny, and I think that's definitely true of this camera angle as well. The one looking up from the easel, because Eve had so many moments where her face was looking like I've never seen anyone's face look before, just terrified and horrified the whole time.
The GoPros, I'll say this, but the GoPros work really well in the show. In the latest series, the UK version, that I'm not too keen on the 360 camera.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think sometimes that's a style. I don't think you'd ever use the 360 camera that's a stylistic choice, if that makes sense. The GoPro is like a sort of an action thing that tells you what's going on. I think they've only used but I know what you mean, because sometimes it is a little bit like, oh, the 360 is like the start of the thing.
They've used it sometimes in certain tasks just for
it can be a little bit like, oh, okay. But I quite, in a way, it's weird, because we've again talked to lots of like editors and people on the People's Podcast, and they say, like, so often they will just say to Alex, like, I'm going to try this, and Alex will go, yeah, go for it. And then like weird things will happen, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I quite like the fact that as a show, obviously there's a blueprint and there's stuff they can do, but it feels like actually every aspect of the show, they're always trying to push the boundaries a little bit further. Like, it's never sort of like, oh, we know how to do this, we'll just do this one again. They're always like, what if we did this? Or like, what if we, like, so I agree. Basically, I agree with you in the sense that the 361 doesn't fully work, but like, I like the fact that they're trying it.
And when the Taskmaster Junior comes out next year,
yeah,
I've looked at the application process because I wanted to know when it was coming out, and
oh, brilliant!
I wanted to learn about how it was going to work and what the process was like, because I thought you'd already cast everyone. Will you be covering it from a stats point on the People's Podcast?
I think so, but probably not in the same. Well, the problem is, Tom, is that people often say like, oh, you should do a stats, like a spreadsheet for Australia and New Zealand or like other countries. If I did that, my life would be over. Like I couldn't have, there would be no more life for me. So part of me, I think I'll see how we get on. There's the other thing is that I reckon, understandably, well, I don't know. Actually, I haven't seen any of it. I don't know what's going to be like. The idea that Rose Matafeo may disqualify everyone in a task feels very unlikely to me, but I don't know. So I wonder if a little bit like when they do Pointless Celebrities, the scores are always that little bit more inflated. I think that may happen in the kids version. I'm not saying it will, and I haven't seen anything, so I don't know.
Well, I've heard from Reddit users that they went to watch the pilot version, that it was really fun. The kids were regular kids, and be fun atmosphere. But what I can see from the application process, it's different kids each week, and
interesting.
Whoever wins out, it's like Bake Off. Junior Bake Off, you have certain kids for a certain amount of weeks, and then they have another set. Then whoever's won from them sets come together for the
right. Okay, so best of the best.
So they're in the semi-final will be certain kids. Whoever wins them will then go into the final.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I say this. I'm sure it'll be fantastic and great. One thing I really enjoy about Taskmaster is the idea that it doesn't really matter where you finish, because apart from getting to go on Champion of Champions, which is fun, but like everyone has their moment to shine. And so I think it's interesting if there is actually an elimination is an interesting little twist on that. But we'll see. That's
the Danish versions are in a losers.
I know. The Alex has always said there will never be a loser of losers, and so has Greg actually. And I think I kind of understand that. I feel like they had their moment and they enjoyed their moment, but I don't necessarily want to see. I don't want to see Nish do a terrible job again.
I was Wozniak's now having his third shot in the Taskmaster World. Edinburgh, he won that. He didn't win.
He came second in his series, and now he's
And now he's the assistant. But moving back on to this, we've got Evil Wozniak. I'm going to call him Evil Wozniak.
Evil Wozniak, sure, Joe.
So we've got Evil Wozniak, aka Joe. He seemed very calm whilst riding. See, I've never seen someone wearing a man bun with a tash like an Evil Wozniak being so tranquil and calm whilst riding a horse. I've ridden on horses in the past, and I don't like the fact that you're and I wouldn't be able to want to try and paint something while I was going.
It was legitimately. It looked like a scene in The Matrix. He just looked so calm and like serene as he went across. I think, he said something about like being at one with the beast. I think absolutely true. I think there's definitely a beast within him that he was taming somehow. But like it was very peaceful to watch. I feel like if I ever need to like calm myself down, I can just watch footage of evil Mike Wozniak going around in a circle painting. Yeah, he seemed to just sort of move his body at the same like thing as well. Like I think everyone else had that level of panic or despair that he just didn't have.
Well, on hindsight, he does look like one of the people that does do meditation and yoga and all.
Yes. I think it was interesting watching him when he he did his inappropriate item and the rest of it. And I think there are two ways that he could have gone. And I was slightly surprised in the way he did go. One way is going like proper hardcore, I'm furious all the time, non-stop rage forever, which is honestly the way I thought he'd go. And then the other way is, as you say, is just very calm meditation. Like he's clearly been through a lot, and this isn't going to phase him. And actually, that's the energy he brings. He seems to bring that to quite a lot of tasks, actually. Yeah.
And now Mathieu.
Mathieu.
What I wrote down in my notes as he had a very bumpy ride.
Very true. Very bumpy. I can't remember. He said something that really made me laugh, and I can't remember what it was. It was something like. It's something like it was something. Well, I think it's the subtitles in this were amazing. By the way, hats off to whoever did the subtitles. They're so funny. There was one that was just angry French noises. I was like, "Yep, accurate."
But I like how they put in brackets to explain what they are for anyone that doesn't.
Yes, that was really nice, and I think that it made me appreciate if you're not English if you're not British watching Taskmaster UK. The number of things where people would just be like, "What is that? What is that joke? Like, what? Like, I don't understand this at all." And it was very good to sort of get that context. So yeah.
So for viewers that are watching Taskmaster from outside that want these like fan-made subtitles, if you go to taskmaster.info, on most episodes will have the link to the your version of subtitles that are available, created by Taskmaster World Inc.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
They're very generous people. They also sent me a clip from Taskmaster Portugal that I'm yet to get the subtitles for, but it's an Alex Horn swapping a sock whilst he's do. Someone said he said something in Portuguese and went Alex Horn, and all you see this clip of Alex Horn. It takes he's at a wedding or some sort of award show. Takes his sock off and then puts his sock back on.
And everyone applauds?
Yeah, because everyone Alex Horn, but I don't know the specific context, so I haven't seen the subtitles yet.
Yeah.
I just saw it and thought. I was like driving in a motorhome thinking, why is Alex swapping around socks?
What a life you lead.
Yeah, a very bizarre life. And so this task itself was quite good. Now the person that we can't pronounce out that's Mehdi.
Yeah, Mehdi.
Pretended they were a cowboy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think it helped them, I'm going to be honest. Didn't help him in the task.
Now, the second task is one that I sort of hate, sort of like, all at the same time.
Sure.
Because it's one of the ones where it's like, just do it correctly. And one of them, like, I see why you've done that. It is retrieve the table tennis ball from the tube. So it's one where they've got the liquid. Well, I think it's blackcurrant juice.
I don't know. I think it looks like it's some kind of exciting cocktail. And I would say it looked bright blue. Do you think that's blackcurrant juice?
Yeah.
I don't know. It sort of looked like Listerine.
Well, it's interesting this because I would have got someone, and I'll tell you, and I think I can tell you who. Joe, Evil Wozniak did something horrifically stupid. He didn't put the tape on the holes. He put it around the hole.
What's wrong with that?
Well, you miss the holes completely. You need to cover the holes to stop it from leaking.
Yeah, but he did it really quickly. I thought he did. Didn't he do it? I just thought he was just trying to get everything, wasn't he?
When I was watching it, I saw him miss a couple of holes.
Oh, I think he went back a few times because I remember thinking that's the way to do it because someone else did it with plasters. Bad idea. Very bad idea. Someone else did it with chewing gum, which was a bizarre decision. That was so weird. He just like popped, I think it was Mathieu, he just popped a bunch of chewing gums, like, and then went bum, 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 bum. Bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Like, I think, well, obviously, it's an objective task, and I do think Evil Wozniak did the right thing here. And he seemed to just be very calm with the whole thing. Like, he just knew exactly he didn't know exactly what to do. He tried it at first and it didn't work, and then he just got the tape, and he was then muttering like, if I had a superpower, and this is exactly what Mike Wozniak would say. He said, if I had a superpower, you know what it would be? I would stop time. Then I could do your little tasks. And that is, if you don't think that's what Mike Wozniak would say, you're wrong.
Cocky, see, well, that cock.
Yeah.
And when you interview, because they did this on the Croatian version, what was it like interviewing the people from the Croatian version?
That was really interesting, actually, because I think they were really excited to talk to us, and we were really excited to talk to them, obviously. But I think there aren't many shows like Taskmaster obviously there aren't many shows like Taskmaster anywhere, but like I think panel shows are a very British thing. So I think from our perspective, Taskmaster is a bizarre, unique, wonderful show, and there's nothing like on TV. But there is at least like a sort of, there's a bunch of comedians and there's a host, and it vaguely makes sense. It's just a twist on that. I think what the Croatian Taskmaster assistant was saying was that like this is so far beyond what anyone has done on Croatian TV before. That in that sense, I think people were a bit like, "Oh my god, this is great and weird, and I don't fully understand." Yeah.
Well, because and I'm the oracle of knowledge, panel shows actually started in America. We imported them.
Really? Oh, that's
On
cool.
American radio, we have them. Germany has them. Japan's got a couple.
Mm.
And a lot of them also out on radio, but then we create too many. Well, not too many.
We did create too many.
Well, we have more than anyone else, and that's how come when America now is trying to do it, then they're failing because it's not their stuff. They're trying to copy us.
Well, I think British panel shows are unique in the sense that I think because I knew American panel. Obviously, there are American panel shows, but I think that the scores matter a lot more in America, or people care about the scores a lot more. People care about the scores in Taskmaster. They don't really care about them in any other panel show. I would.
I make 'em up.
Yeah. No, with Mock the Week, I've been to a Mock the Week recording. Dara would do multiple different versions depending on what they would cut and what they wouldn't cut, which is amazing.
Well, I quite like that because when I created my panel show, which is called Time Lord, this is a Doctor Who one.
Brilliant.
Because I don't know the correct term, but I've got that disability that doesn't make you great at maths, the one that you're not very good at numbers.
Yes.
I can't think of the word because there's another one that sounds very similar. And so I just make the scores up as I go along. And originally, and I've even got it with me, I originally bought this.
Oh, that's cool.
And my counting went wrong, and I didn't know which way what was what, and I was.
Okay, well it's good that you bought the thing though, as a way of fixing it.
I bought it, and then I stopped having teams because it was hard to get them all together. So I had to just people. So I just idea completely.
But I do like that was the thing that was quite interesting about the creation one is I think that you sort of have to understand the idea that it's competitive, but it's not really competitive. But it's sort of a joke that's competitive, but it's not really a joke that's competitive. But because people really care, but they don't really care. And there's a weirdo who does stats about it, and he thinks it's important, but it's not really important. But he also spends a lot of time on it. So I think there are lots of things that make you go like, if you are just introduced this completely without context, it's like, what is this? I think that was what they were saying that was their biggest struggle really with the show.
And you also interviewed someone that I've been trying to interview for ages, but I can just never get through. I've interviewed Babin Larson, might I add. But, but it was the first time she spoke English in 2 years. I'm struggling to interview. What's it like interviewing the one and only?
There we go.
David Sundin.
Oh my God, David Sundin is wonderful. He's so funny. Oh my God, look at that.
This book is available on UK Amazon.
Really?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, not the second one, but the first one is.
I think the really lovely thing about David Sundin that's very cool. He really, there are people where you're like, he's the spiritual successor to Alex.
Yeah.
Like, it definitely feels like someone made the Scandinavian version of Alex Horn, and you're like, there we go, that's David Sundin. Just have him. He was so lovely, and he's so funny, and just naturally incredibly funny, despite the fact that he was speaking, not his native language. And he has like kids' books and amazing. There he is.
There was also because I'm in a circle of scout related things, and I think I still am on a Bestie Test Facebook group, and this woman, I tried to contact her to ask how she did this because I wanted to learn. She created a camp that was Bestie Test themed. She's stolen the karma cutout of David from her work, dressed up as David with the tash and everything. And it's the greatest thing. I don't know if you can track him down for the Taskmaster People's podcast.
Oh my God.
Incredible. She got all the kids to all these tests, is what they call them. And she had dressed up in the outfit. The other leader had also dressed up in the correct outfit, in the correct uniform.
That's incredible. That's what you want, really, isn't it?
But Davidson on the list of people I need to interview. I've got friends with.
He's a very lovely guy. Yeah. Try and find a way.
My aim in life now, as of 3 seconds ago, is to try and make friends with all the people that worked on Taskmaster, so that if I'm ever in their country, I've got somewhere to hang. Somewhere.
Yes, they have an amazing house in that one as well.
But we digress. Joe, evil Wozniak.
Evil Wozniak.
Evil Wozniak used the black tape in his evil ways. But I do think this task works better here than it did in Croatia and the UK.
I love the fact of Christine. Christine was the one for me. Of brilliant, and being able to the idea of overwhelming the holes with a huge bucket of water is just I feel like that is what I would do in this situation.
Now, task 3, the task that, when you think about it, it represents Taskmaster as a whole, but it also does is it drives me up the wall, because when you try to buy said item, you then have to find an image of it in Alex's mouth to measure the size of it. It is sell all the ducks. So I was doing something for explorers, which is what you do after scouts. It's running this multitude of night race, a load of panel shows mixed together to make one panel show. And there's an image of Alex. We were trying to buy ducks, but we didn't know what size the official ones were. So there's an image out there of a duck, of Alex's mouth wide open with a duck shoved in it. And we were trying to we got a ruler out and measured it against my phone.
Well, isn't that what John Kearns says? He said, "Where'd you get ducks that small? I tried to buy them. I couldn't buy ducks that small."
We ended up buying like nearly 300.
Whoa! Okay.
We only needed about 10.
Well done. Did you never know what's going to happen to 290 ducks? So yeah.
Then what we had to do was the following week we were doing something at clubs for the Morsel Leader, and we tried to get rid of as many ducks as possible. So we created a whole night where they were building stuff so they can take the ducks away with them. We didn't have to interact with them anymore. It works very well.
Good plan.
Yeah, it's very so. I quite like the terminology "fell" because I was struggling to know the meaning of it. Then I realised straight away when the meaning of it. Now we've got something that uses the knowledge of, if you've seen Taskmaster, it's your first instinct. It's again our favourite woman, Christina. She picked up the rope barrier thing and that is what I like to call Taskmaster in a nutshell.
That is very much Taskmaster 101. If there is something that you can move to your advantage, that is absolutely what you should do. It's like in the most recent series, Ivo on the spot with the egg pulper. If you can move that spot, you move that spot and you get an advantage. And I love when people have that realization, because it's just like they've gone, oh my god. And yeah, and also then it's also seeing other people's reaction where they are either furious they didn't think of it, or just furious in general because how dare you? Yeah.
Well, in episode, I think it's episode 8. I'm trying to work that out. In episode 8 of the latest series, we had everyone being really angry that they didn't see all the other pineapples.
Yeah. Yes, I love things like that where they try and the whole show exists to annoy you. And this is, as you say, it's Taskmaster. It's classic Taskmaster. The problem is once you see how, I'm going to say Hugh did it. Hugh's the icon for me. This is a series for like Hugh's. I mean, Hugh's great, and I'm a Hugh truther. I think Hugh should have come a lot higher than he did. But I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge Dennis fan. But the like as soon as I see it now, I just can't unsee it. Like I that's the way to do it. You just get a rope and then you just pull it and you're done.
And so then we had evil Wozniak using a step ladder.
Disagree. Tut. I disagree with this so hard, and I cannot begin to believe that you thought this is ever acceptable. It's such a weird decision.
He sadly got disqualified.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
He was trying to be evil, and I do think it's really funny because it Wozniak small.
Yeah. No, Mike's pretty tall, I think, isn't he?
Well, he looks on that photo.
He does, but you have to remember there's no I mean, that's a photo, crucially, and they're about this big. So, you know, I have a stat about how big Mike Wozniak is. Shall I look it up? 185 centimeters, Mike Wozniak, so 1 meter 85. So that's pretty tall, actually.
Well, the next time you record an episode of Taskmaster People's podcast, I reckon you need to discuss with Lou that you've discovered that Mike Wozniak is an evil twin brother.
I actually will. Do not worry. We will definitely bring this up.
This needs to be. I need to see these. I need to go on to the Reddit page, which I'm not too sure what Reddit is exactly, but
Sure, yeah, I struggled with it as well.
I need to just see the word evil Wozniak on there. I need more people to say that we need somehow to get a clip of this just circulating in the official circle.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he got disqualified, which is the first disqualification of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had Madhu, which definitely isn't right, but we'll stick with it. For a mixture of items to knock them down, such as a plant pot, and it looks like I wrote the word horoscope, but I'm never too sure.
I mean, I can't remember the Machu or Mehdi was the guy who threw it and then refused to go get the items again. So just was like, I can't go beyond. He seemed to interpret it as going, I can't go beyond this, the rope itself, which is a very weird decision to make.
That reminded me from the first, from the P task in Taskmaster Finland, where the official YouTube channel accidentally put it on with subtitles for everyone to watch.
Oh, very good.
And it's the one where they've got the P, and one of them's like, "No, I'm not. I can't go get that now." So then starts rolling up the red carpet to chase after the P.
That's clever. Yeah, people get weird when you give them that special rope. People get weird.
Yeah, and before we move on to the live task, the live task, I do like to say, whilst I've got the opportunity to say something that works in a semi-official capacity, I had watched an episode, because I think some of them wanted it to YouTube quite a while ago, an episode of Taskmaster Norway.
Uh-huh.
One of the tasks was you had to try and cook a waffle from a waffle maker without going into the red.
Yeah, I think I actually remember this one. Yeah, and yeah. Well, you couldn't step into the red. That was what it said, wasn't it?
I was watching this, and this was, and this channel was semi-new, and I wanted to come up with the original ideas. What did I do? I recreated it. I got one of those mini scootery board things, which is like a mini car that babies drive.
Yeah.
And you watched me gaffer tape this massive rod together and whilst recycling through. I did it safely because I did it outside where I altered some bits to make it more safe. But you just watched me chugging along and I'm just chugging past the camera and walking back again. I'm like watching this thing without trying to injure myself because I'm filming it myself, doing it myself.
Oh wow, okay.
That's my family just casually sat inside doing their own thing whilst I'm attacking a waffle.
And they're just like, that's just Tom. Tom likes to attack waffles machines outside. That's what he does.
Yeah, just casually whacking the waffles. Which is one of the weirdest videos I think I've ever filmed that's in a capacity of thought the idea the day before and did it without any thoughts. But it works very well because now this channel is got a lot of subscribers, but that might not be because it's just Taskmaster. So the live test for me, before I read it out, sort of did something weird. It was what Taskmaster does now in the UK. It was more of here's the task, but I don't really care about the task. And you and you. So it's separate the red sweets, or it should have been called try and get rid of all the sweets and annoy everyone else in the process.
I enjoyed this, and I think you can tell a lot about a series based on their live tasks. So like I think this series in the UK has been very good for letting people like you know a lot about how the live, what the vibe of the guys is almost from the first live task, which is where they had to throw the ball and then Ivo threw the ball at Kael and Kael threw the ball at Ivo and ruined the whole thing. Wonderful stuff. Absolutely loved it. And I think there's a similar vibe here where it's like other series, I think you would have just had serious concentration, everyone just working on their own thing. Mehdi successfully ruins everyone's thing, just like throwing sweets into his bowl. It's wonderful. And I think, again, that kind of makes me go like, okay. And then they started having, Christine and Maddie started having a fight with boxing gloves. It was great.
It reminds me of one of the newest live tasks in the new series where I don't know if it was Frankie that started it, but when they were just they was trying to get the thing onto a podium, and then they just
Yes.
launch it that way and then launch it that way.
Yeah. No, I think it's that thing where when you realize you can attack other people, it's the first time you're actually doing a task with other people. You can actually undermine them and ruin them. It's great.
So the winner of the episode was Eve.
Yep, fair enough.
Congratulations.
Round of applause for Eve. I thought she was great actually, and I thought that she's really into it as well, which is very exciting.
It's very good. So, my plan for the future with Taskmaster Quebec is hunt them down and interview them. So no more is still on that. Now, before we wrap up this interview, we're gonna ask the age-old question: is it easier writing for animation, and you can name which animation you write for, so you can pull them whilst we're at it, or is it easier to write for live action?
That's a really good question. I'm doing a lot of animation work at the moment for a show I can't mention just yet, but we'll be able to mention soon. It's very exciting. And it won't come out till 2025 or 2026. So in that sense, it is very hard to write for animation because you write something, where this is currently May 2023, it will come out in 2 years' time, and I will entirely have forgotten what happened to it, really.
So when you write for that, I can't remember the name of it, but it's that superhero that's potato.
Super Potato, yeah.
The potato. Yeah, I knew it had some. When you're writing this, do you see? Have they made a rough copy of what the animation's gonna look like?
No. Well, what they'll do is they'll have like key art, and if it's so for instance, if it's when I worked at Super Potato like from the get go, so like from one of the first few episodes I'd written stuff for it. I think that's right. Hope that's right. As often there will be shows will be in production, and then you get to see like an almost finished episode, and you'll be like, okay, that's what the show is. That's helpful because I can then write based on what that show is. Excellent. With Super Potato or things where the show doesn't exist yet, you're basically going on like you don't know what the animation style will be like. They'll give you like little clips here and there. They'll give you if you're lucky, you'll get an animatic where you'll be able to see like how a character moves, but that will be very rough. In a way, that's quite freeing because you can sort of anything can happen really with it. And then that's the thrilling thing is when you've written this thing and you don't have to give a huge amount of detail, and the director and the storyboard artists, they do such an amazing job of like taking your work and like changing it in ways you'd never be able to understand. And also like rules, there are various things that you have to do for animation that you would never think of doing yourself. You've done it yourself when you're sort of filming something. You're like, I know what I'm going to frame. I know what joke will be here and there. With animation, it's completely different because the whole thing has to be built, and like there's a level of like you can't just point at something and film it. You have to sort of create it out of thin air.
And that's really interesting because when you watch like behind the scenes of animation, some of the voice actors get like a rough copy of what it's going to look like to know what they're doing. So it's rather interesting going even deep where you not always have a idea of what the show's supposed to be. So when you get that situation where they haven't got any art for you to look at, do you sometimes get more notes back from the creator saying, I need it more like this, more like that?
Yeah, you have to be prepared for that to happen quite a lot, and that how you visualize the show will be entirely different from what the actual show is. And also you just have to be quite like relaxed about that and be like, okay, that's what it is. There's nothing really you can do about it, and that in the future maybe you'll get a bit more control or a bit more like you'll have a better sense of it. But that's fine. There's nothing really you can do anything about that. What's interesting is you're saying about the voice actors getting a rough, like they get an animation to get to see like a rough cut. Obviously, what you would do is you'd get the voice actor to do it, and then you'd animate around the voice actor because they may do extra things, or like this is how it usually works. So like if so someone like a great improviser who does like Robin Williams in the Aladdin is the one that everyone talks about because The rumor is, I don't know if it's actually true. It might be an apocryphal story that he improvised so much that they couldn't send the script in for best adapted screenplay because 40% of it was just improvised by Robin Williams. I don't know if that's actually true, but
I've heard that as well.
yeah, I think it might be one of those stories that actually isn't true, but I don't know.
Well, I think it's one of the ones that passed down on the grapevine of
Yes.
the entertainment industry. I'm not going to call it the creative industry because that's a better word for it.
Yes, I think that's very true.
That puts like everyone in the same thing. And so we're coming to we're at the pinnacle point of the interview where it's your turn to say to the lovely viewers, where can they find you, not your home address, where can they find you online, and is there any projects that are coming up, like when I say coming up, I mean like are coming out, you're out to talk about that you want people to either view, see, or want to know more about your amazingness?
Oh, well, that's very kind. You can find me I'm mostly on Twitter, I would say, at JackBurn23. That's probably the best place to find me. I do the People's Podcast with Lou Sanders, the Taskmaster People's Podcast with Lou Sanders. It's a wonderful podcast. Really enjoy it. Having an absolutely wonderful time.
I second that.
Oh, thank you.
I can't say I've had a wonderful time. I second that it's a good podcast.
Well, you can have a good time listening to it. We have a wonderful time listening. There we go. We can agree on that at least. And then I also do a podcast which should be coming back fairly soon called the Football Book Club, where we review footballers' autobiographies, and it's ridiculous. Just some comedy friends of mine. We have a great time doing it. And then otherwise, I write. Super Potato's out. Chip and Dale is out on Disney Plus. I've written for that. Yeah, that's exciting. Dogs in Space is still on Netflix, hopefully. And there will be another show that I'm working on that I can announce in probably a month's time, but then it won't come out for 2 years, so don't bother.
Well, I recommend watching Super Potato. I've seen clips of it because I know it's on CBeebies. So
it is CBeebies.
I'm one of those people that want to watch it but hesitant to watch.
That's fair. You're not the target demographic. I will agree with that.
I love that.
You like what? Sorry.
Bluey.
I love Bluey. I've had Bluey so much.
I have some time when I've finished work in college watching it on Disney Plus.
I will tell you, we stopped going to Disney Plus, but I've got annoyed at the fact that my daughter has gone to sleep because I want to watch more Bluey. So sometimes I'm like, no, come on, you can stay up. Come on, watch more Bluey. It's fine.
Well, you should join a brand new podcast that's been thought of but never been formed, of Adam Hills and Josh Widdicombe talking about Bluey for hours on it.
I would love that. I would love that so much.
On their podcast. Well, for me personally, you can see me on all 17 YouTube channels and 12 podcasts. Yeah, I know.
Wowee.
And there's a special project coming out on Saturday with a teaser for that on Friday on the Tom Mason YouTube channel, Doctor Who Wise. And if you are David Sundin, please help me. Or if Babin, if you still watch my channel after my interview with you, help me.
Help me get David Sundin. Help kidnap David Sundin.
I want to be friends with him.
Yeah.
Well, me and Babin are very good friends because she had reminiscences of times of how she was upset that there were the lack of episodes of QI Swedish. She was the Amanda Davis of the Swedish QI.
Oh, that's interesting, isn't it? It's the dynamic shifting.
So, and that's it. Wonderful interview. Thank you for letting me interview you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time.
And remember, keep tasking. Bye.
Bye.
Watching this and work on Strictly. I do not copyright you. I will trademark that if I have to.
Hello everyone, please subscribe to Taskmaster World.